Organization transformation versus personal transformation. Which one do you think is the winner?
That's a good one. A good question for today. Welcome to the game-changing workshop with Roxana and Veronica.
Yes, and if those of you, if this is the first time that you've watched our show, we do stream live on LinkedIn on Roxana's profile, so you can always follow her. But we also have our wonderful library that's growing and growing of all our shows on the Game Changing Work Channel YouTube channel. So you can go over there and subscribe, and you will never miss a beat. And you'll have that collection that's easy to get from all the shows that we started back. When did we start? November?
I think so.
Yeah,
or maybe
so
October even.
Collection, and we're getting better on the topics that we're addressing. So this is a hot one, and I'm going to lean into this of why it's hot before we jump into the actual aspects of it. So there's a lot that's happening right now. We are still in chaos, and don't ever think that we are in the norm stage. I actually saw an email of Jeremy Gooch where he talks about that we still are in chaos because we're still trying to figure out things. We have not even got to norm. Like, we have no idea what norm is. And so when we talk about transformations or companies that are trying to pivot and deal with this world of unforeseen challenges and try to think about their employees and the people that are going to help them get there, they talk a lot about the word transformation. And so Roxana and I are peeling that onion back, and we're going to challenge it and dissect it today, because this is the time now for us to start thinking about how we approach and think about things differently. We have to start opening our minds to the possibilities of different.
Exactly. Of different. And I think we're pretty much living the different. Every single day. It's all about how we are making it, how we are embedding that different in our lives, because that's what transformation is all about, right? And I know that because of the crisis, the difference between change and crisis is not just speed, but also the result, because with the crisis, the change is already there. The changes happen, but and then you figure out how you adapt to what's happened. And a lot of that, I think we've seen going on, and a lot of that, some of you figured some things out for themselves or for their organizations, or both. And we're going to dive into that. And some of us who are still trying to figure things out. And the reality is, I think we are putting a lot of pressure, an extra pressure on ourselves, as in, oh, we need to find the secret of how we can do this, of how we can create the new normal now. And the reality is, I don't think anyone really has a recipe, and I don't think there is just one recipe.
Exactly.
It's right? Because we're different.
Unique.
Exactly. So that's why we love this topic.
And I shared an article today about that very thing when it comes to remote work, because this all ties out to when we talk about changes and transformations. It's all inclusive, because in order for a company to shift and pivot the way they work, it requires people to change.
Yeah. And
we tend to like to look outside into processes and things that are very easy to address, right? It's never, when you don't have to think about yourself or to get people to do things, it's so much easier to look at things in general. And what we have to start doing is reflecting, how well has that worked over the last 10 years, so to speak. So Agile, when it started back in the early 2000s, was really more at the team level. And then I would say probably within the last 10 years, the concept of scaling bigger and bigger within the enterprise is what is mainstream today. Now you hear the term business agility probably more than the word transformation, because now they're saying, okay, transformation could have been in a department where agile started with IT, and now we need to think beyond of just the entire company. But here's what I love. This is one word I think you're going to enjoy, Roxana, is the word holistic.
Oh yeah, I'm a fan.
I know you are. I know you love that one. And I'll give my like seeding of holistic, because this is a word that we could probably branch off in many different ways. Yeah. Holistic, you and I both agree, is both personal and professional, right? Because again, if we're talking about people and the dynamics, there is no difference. Yeah. We know that we have all been able to see this, hear this lately, right? From the things that we're exposed to, and also feel what it looks like when the worlds collide between your personal and professional from 2020 and what we're actually doing still today. So now those of you that couldn't imagine it, couldn't feel it, couldn't even hear and tell yourselves of what that would look like, now you can, because we have something to compare it to. So now the world has opened up. It's like we left the genie out of the bottle, so to speak, of the word holistic altogether.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And this is why some people, and I've seen people thriving with that, and I've seen people suffering because of that. Because we were so used with splitting, with making that distinction between my professional self, and my professional self will go to the office every morning and was so serious and puts face, and it's an image that we project, but we never use the personal self together with the professional one, because hey, why? No, they're two distinct things. And then you come back home and you think the professional self is going to stay there back at the office. But what happened was suddenly the office was at home, and people got to see your very serious professional self with a kid in the background, with a dog in the background, the cat coming in front of your camera not working. I don't know. Stuff happened, and we started to share more of the personal environment. What we're sharing, what we're doing now, we're sharing bits of our homes with people watching us. And that became the norm.
Yeah. And some of this was existing, like it was already there today, because they were able to leave the house, shut the door, and drive to work. They were able to, out of sight, out of mind, but it really wasn't. And then new things came about in this situation. So it was very compounded.
Yeah.
We know that as humans in our brains, we are only able to hold 5 to 7 bits of chunks of information at one given time. So we're always competing in our heads of what's actually going to make the cut. Those of you that don't know that. So if you have a lot of personal things going on that day, and then you have a lot of things at work, something's got to give. And that is where I think we were all tested when it comes to this. So tying it back to our topic for today of organizational transformation and personal transformation, I'll start my opinion, and then you can branch off yours. How's that?
Yep.
Right now.
Let's do it.
So for me is, when it comes to companies, yes, you have to look at running your business. However, running your business starts with each individual knowing who they are and knowing how they can actually contribute and provide value to the company. This also is, how confident are they in themselves and their abilities? So this goes into what you talked about when it comes to self-image.
Yeah.
So when we talk about which is the winner, if I would say the cart before the horse, I would say we need to start with personal transformation first. But if you, in a company, you have to understand who you want to be and what are the business needs that you're trying to do to achieve, to stay in business, or to think about what you feel in the future. Those are very high level things. When we start to peel the onion and we start to create these strategy plans and tactics, this is where it starts to fall apart. And this is what I've seen through all the years as an agile transformation coach. And this is why I stepped away from transformations. Now, I still like coaching, and I might, still do some agile coaching. But when it comes to the transformation part, this is where I think I have some differences on some of that thinking today. Mm-hmm. And it starts within. We know that everyone out there that are agile coaches talk about leaders, how they will bring you in, spend all this money for a transformation, but they're not willing to actually look within themselves, and they're not really bought in about change. They want to fix their problem, but not necessarily doing it, getting uncomfortable in the process of fixing it. Right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I've seen it. This is funny because this is what we touched on in the Lead for Legacy League yesterday, because we had our weekly session. And we were talking about how can we, and it goes down to how can we motivate people? How can we talk to our people now, because they feel down and low and low and exhausted and overwhelmed and depleted, and you name it. And then the managers feel the same, right? I mean, we never think about that, but they do, because they don't have the rabbit out of the hat. They have no clue what to do, maybe. And we were discussing just about that. Like, how can I set development goals right now for my team members? And how can I do that in a way that is going to make sense? And that goes to, so we talk about personal/professional transformation that you need to set some development goals for. And it all boils down to, and I tried to use my drawing skills yesterday. It was awful, but hey, I did the best I could do. But the point is, you are there as an individual or as a manager. And I was telling them, if you have a team that you manage, fine. Your team is also your client, right? And you're a client to them. So let's not forget that. That's one. If you don't have a team, you're your own client. So you're there to advocate for yourself and to set your development goals, but you don't set them just like that out of the blue. Oh, I'm thinking I need to, I don't know, suddenly grow 2 inches. I'm not going to grow 2 inches tall because it's just impossible. And you have to link it to a goal that's actually achievable.
And one of the things that I challenge, and this is, for me, I am trying to get people to take ownership of how they're going to thrive. And if we're talking about individuality and uniqueness and being able to actually determine your future and designing it, who are you as a manager to tell me what I need to work on to develop?
Exactly.
This is where they need to take that ownership. Now, here's where the benefit lies, like I was talking about. What are the business goals that we need to do to be successful as a company? And then let people figure out how they are going to show up in their value as a contributor. That's a great challenge to get them to think about it.
Yeah.
Now, and here's why. There is a thing called inferiority and superiority complex. And what we do a lot when it comes to those of you that are working with performance management, those of you that are working agile transformations, we like to measure things and we like to put standards. I started out as a high school science teacher. And so, went through the system, the grading system and whatever. And even back then, I started to question it, and I really wasn't fond of grades. I actually created a system where as long as you had a C-, it was more important for me to teach you some life skills and be a critical thinker and think for yourself and be able to solve problems, and also to like science because I was a science teacher. Those were my ultimate goals. I had to play in the world of the grading system, but truthfully, I was like, what's that going to give the person when they leave my class? And so I was already bucking it, in truth. Now in Agile Transformations, I did swallow the Kool-Aid about like when we talk about Agile maturation and how they're measuring. And then I started to think about that based on this excerpt that I'm going to read. And I'm realizing how much of a fraud I was and phony of that original thought of the science teacher back then. And the reason why is because we were measuring people on a standard, and that's wrong. And I'm going to admit to it right now. We should be always trying to measure what we need to do as a bigger goal, but allow people to figure out how they're moving towards that. And so these maturity assessments that people are doing, how agile you are, I'm going to tell you, rethink it now, because I was a fraud, but I'm a recovering fraud about not measuring standards, because I don't want to create the inferior complex. And then people are striving to be superior. Now, I'll read this excerpt and then I'm going to give you the floor because I know you have some thoughts around this.
Yep.
Is that cool?
But I'm curious about that excerpt.
Yeah. So it is not knowledge of actual inferiority. And this is from the cybernetics that I'm reading, everyone. So it's not knowledge of actual inferiority in skill or knowledge that gives us the inferiority complex and interferes with our living. It is the feeling of inferiority that does this. Now, and this feeling of inferiority comes about for just one reason. We judge ourselves and measure ourselves not against our own norm or par, but against some other individual's norm. So you see where I'm going with this here. When we do this, we always, without exception, come out second best.
Yeah.
But because we think and believe and assume that we should measure up to some other person's norm, we feel miserable. We feel second rated and conclude that there's something wrong with us. The next logical conclusion is in this cockeyed reasoning process is to conclude that we are not worthy, that we don't deserve success and happiness, and that it would be out of place for us to fully express our own abilities and talents wherever they might be without apology or without feeling guilty about it. Mm-hmm. Now, let that sit in for a second about what I just said about measuring and creating standards.
And it reminds me of this quote about the fish, and that it says, everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. And I think this is pretty much been what we've done and pretty much what we've been measuring so far, right? I mean, if you need somebody to climb a tree, don't hire the fish to do it. It's that simple. And this is why it comes back to, I think, to what we were talking about, to why this has to be connected to the business. I mean, yes, at the end of the day, everything is going to be a business decision, but it's time to understand that everything that is related to people, all of the people discussions are business discussions. And this is why. Because the problem is not about measuring the fish who obviously cannot climb the tree. The problem is what happened that we hired the fish to do that, and we're still measuring the fish, and we still have the expectation that it will be able to climb the tree. So this is the problem. We need to look at people and see the people and see them individually and be able to see where they are a great fit at in the organization, however big that organization is. Exactly. That's when they will own it.
And that I talked about the ownership mindset in my live show last night. Mm-hmm. And this is all compounded to the trendy word of empowerment. And this goes back to the 5 skills. Those of you that did not get a chance to watch our show last week, that is also related to this as well. Because, and this is all connected, where people need to own their growth. It's the only way you're going to get resiliency. It's the only way that you're going to teach people how to think for themselves and critical thinking to help your company excel. If they are not able to really go beyond those boundaries, and some people, it's going to take a little bit because they're not used to it. We're so used to being assimilated and not being able to think for ourselves and think about all the different approaches that some companies, this is a huge challenge for them. Now, there are some that are flourishing and you can see it, right? You see companies where their stock went up 85% last year because they already like created a foundation around this. Great for you. I'm probably not talking to you, but still, it is so important when it comes to personal transformation. It's yours. And when you see a lot of the professional development, and you've been in this, right? Where they create it in the eye of one person's vision. And this is where it all starts to fall apart.
Yeah, it does. It does, because it's not related to what you individually want or what you individually see for yourself. And I think the problem is maybe just the fact that that's the habit that we created, right? We had just the fact that we have heads of departments, like, and I know because I used to be one, and I was thinking, what am I, walking head? I mean,
I saw that comment.
But just the name of it, think about it. That takes the responsibility off of everybody else that's in the team, because you have a head that thinks, and then everyone else just moves in the direction and just does the moves. But it's not, nobody else is supposed to be thinking about what needs to happen.
And this is why a lot of the companies were struggling, why a lot of you were stressed out, why a lot of you were miserable during this time, because the company culture created a system that only worked in that fashion. It's not, it wasn't created to work in what we're talking about and describing. And so this is where, when we talk about ownership mindset, this is really about you. And a company will benefit if they truly, truly want to be here still 20 years from now, because it's becoming more evident that these small companies are spinning up with this mentality of, really, when we talk about autonomy, flexibility, and the individual aspects of everyone has a different approach to solve for something. And they like that because that's where great things come from. That they have to go, oh my gosh, I have these sea of people that we hired and we loved the assimilation. We loved putting them in our system and this process that we have. But now, holy crap, when the you know what hits the fan, we're not so nimble. We're not so resilient. Yes, they might have actually got through this and they did their work. Don't get me wrong. Well, what I'm challenging is, at what cost did it do to the people?
Yeah.
And how many of them are thinking about how they want to continue to exist? Do they want to be in a company that works like that, like a cog? Or you see like a Salesforce that just came out offering 3 options and starting to try to shift, right? The ones that are actually trying to change is my point, right? And those of you that are, what I always say, working on your personal market value, are going to have choices of where you want to go, because remote and flexible work is increasing. Exactly. Now you don't have to look in your city only, is my point. So you're going to have more choices. And that is where, as Roxana, you work with the managers and stuff is, how do I keep people to want to stay, right? I want to elevate them, kind of like Richard Branson's. I want to elevate them. I want them to stay, but how do I do that? Where I'm the person saying, don't depend on a company to, when it comes to your personal development, you need to own it yourself. If you got personal development dollars, go through programs like mine. Go and figure out, go look outside your company, because at the end of the day, it's about you. And you can stay at your company and give value, but what would that look like if you actually, sat in the driver's seat about it?
Mm-hmm. And you can decide. I mean, it's not, you can stay with the same company, but what personal transformation does is at some point you realize, hey, I've gotten this far, and right now my needs, my values, my beliefs, they don't match the organization. The organization is here, and I can't wait. I can't wait for the organization to catch up with me. So I'm either going to do something on my own, or just go and find another job in an organization
Or you might,
and then I catch up.
An influencer within your company of creating change. So there's many variations.
That's an option.
What we're saying, right?
Exactly.
But the whole point is, you're no good to others unless you're good to yourself. So here in the United States, because I know that you're in Canada, we had the Super Bowl. And there was a great post about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where what's his name? Brady, moved down there. And you know that he's won a lot of Super Bowls for the Patriots. Well, they won the Super Bowl. Now, if you've ever read or the interviews with Tom Brady, he is a zealot when it comes to his own personal transformation and development, personally in his life and also professionally. And the thing that I was reading here, he has complete great self-image. And this guy actually works, he talks about a lot of athletes and stuff of some of the practices they do. And that's what Tom Brady ended up doing. He worked on within himself. And so they talk about his abilities in the profession, right? Because all of these NFL owners are business owners at the end of the day. So this is what I'm comparing this. This individual has been able to be successful because he always took care of number one. He was no good to his team. He was no good to the organization that he went to go work with unless he took care of himself, both personally and professionally. Because there's things when he's not training, he's doing for himself. And so that is something that is good, compared to, we're not talking about companies. This is just, he's an athlete, but there's a reason why he got there the way he is. There's a lot of great athletes that don't do the same thing. Yeah. There's a lot of great employees. There's a lot of you that I meet that are highly intelligent people, but you remain here. You never go beyond. So it's like the salesman that no matter what situation they put them in, they're still a $5,000 salesman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that's a habit. That's what they're used to. And I think that's the difference that personal transformation is going to make, right? Because technically, the competition is high. I mean, and there will be a lot of good people who are technically very good. But then what makes the difference? What makes the difference between you and somebody else?
You. And it's your uniqueness. And this is you and I know this. No one can replace your uniqueness. You hear this on YouTube, people talking about this. You see this in LinkedIn streams. This is not something new that Roxana and I are talking about right now. And this requires your personal transformation to really understand who you are, what's your identity, and that uniqueness authentically that you let others see. Because that's what's going to make you memorable. That's what's going to make you relevant. That's what's going to make you the greatest contributor to a company. And why wouldn't they want to keep you? Why wouldn't they want to help you excel? Or why wouldn't they want to hire you?
And it's also
They see
At the end
it.
of the
It's like
day,
the energy
yeah,
comes out.
it's exactly going back to the excerpt that you read. It's all about also how you feel about what you're doing every day. Because it's not, it doesn't, what we think when we think transformation, we think, oh, things were like this and suddenly they transform. Transformation doesn't work this way. Transformation is a process, and it goes in simple steps, small steps like that, but it has to be consistent. It has to be regular things that you do that help you feel differently than before, than yesterday, so that
Yep.
you behave differently, so that you start becoming the more than $5,000 sales guy or sales lady, right? It's just going up. Okay, so today I'm going to be selling for 10,000, tomorrow it's going to be 15 and
And
stuff
the
like that.
person needs
Use
to
that
decide
example.
that on their own. And
Exactly.
so let's get back to measurement. Now, a lot of people will say you need to measure everything, but measure what? That's what I'm challenging. Measure what? Because if
Yeah.
you're in business, be mindful of what you're measuring. If you are an agile coach, be mindful what you're perpetuating to measure. Because at the end of the day, are you building an inferior complex with people?
Yeah, exactly. And this is exactly what we were talking yesterday. Because I said, okay, at the end of the day, it's going to be a business discussion. It's all going to be related to the business. And you need to know how to make a business case for yourself, right? There's no question about that. But the whole point is, how are you going to make a business case if you don't understand what you're working towards? So it has to be related to the results, not to having a unique pattern, a mold for the behavior, a mold
Oh
for
my
how
gosh.
we're getting to the results,
I've been
right?
in so many agile transformations that try to measure behavior, and
Yeah,
I'm starting
no,
to, and again, I'm okay if I was one of those. Like I said, I'm calling myself a frog because I'm waking up. It's an awakening for me. And I
hmm,
started waking up in 2020, truly. And that's probably why I stepped away from transformations, where I love still coaching and I will take an agile coaching job, but I just want to be mindful of what I'm doing with people. And what it is that inferior complex, what it does, and what I started to see when they're trying to measure someone's behavior. Because here's the thing, we do want to change behaviors, don't get me wrong,
yeah,
but the person needs to figure out
exactly,
what that is, because it's different for everyone.
yeah.
Because you don't know what limiting beliefs the individual has that's creating their inability to take action towards meeting some of those business results. But here's the beauty of it. Why don't we start measuring how we are actually achieving those business outcomes that we want, and then asking and working with the people to figure out what they need to do in order to meet them. Then there's your opportunity to identify the behavior patterns that they need help changing. When you start to
That's
guess and make assumptions of those behavior patterns,
yeah.
that's where most people are going to challenge, because you're basically telling them they're inferior
You're
and they
telling
don't
them what
measure
to do.
up.
Exactly. And this is where, and you're gonna love this is where coaching is needed in companies. This is why I've seen so many development goals just put on paper on your performance reviews. How many of those happened to you, by the way? And then nothing happened afterwards. We put some development goals. Oh, yeah. And then you should go to this training. You should do this, and that. And then nothing happens. Because why? Because people don't believe in that. First of all, because they're not related to business goals. That's one thing. But the other is, how long are we going to keep telling those brilliant people that we hired because we loved them?
They don't meet up
How
to your
long
standard.
are we going to tell them what to do instead of helping them let us know what they think they need to do and how they need to change that behavior, what they
And
want
what's
to do
their
about
standard?
it.
So think about
Exactly.
you know what I love in one of the companies that, you know, their standards were more about their value system.
Mhm.
And that is, and their mission as a company and purpose, right? Those are good core things to stay. And then as a company, you're going to have some goals that you need to, that's kind of I'm going to, my biased opinion, a safe space to stay in. When you start thinking about your people strategies in a way, this is where they need to be co-creating this.
Yes.
And this is why it's so important that they need to figure out what that standard is that they need to go. So just imagine you are Olympic team and you like Olympic swimming team. I think that might be a good one. That you're not going to tell that Olympic swimmer what his or her standard is. They're going to make that because that's what's going to motivate them. But they all have the same goal to get into the Olympics and get a medal. And maybe it's a gold medal. I don't know. But they have a goal is my point. They all have the same mission together. But each one of them is training to their own standard.
To their personal record. That's why they have personal records. That's why, exactly that, because that is what's going to motivate me. Because if I know that I need to finish the race, the lap in 10 seconds, and I know that that's impossible for me because my personal best is 15 seconds, I'm never going to go and swim again. But if I know, hey, I need to beat my own personal best, and that's when I'm gonna be under 15 seconds this time, and then next
you're
time
going to
under
be
40, and so
self-motivated
on.
that because that's what you want. That's what you're going to work on. And this is where the coaching comes in. That person has a vision, an outcome that they're desiring to get to, and they're going to know what they need help in because they're getting stuck in getting it. Right. So that's where you have athletes, they will get coaching for mindset, you know, and help them because maybe their batting average isn't that great. Or, you know, it was funny. I was reading an article of like a golfer where a lot of them, you know, aren't the best, like their swing or whatever you call it, but it's more about helping them believe and envision actually getting into the hole. And so it's always about their mind and how they do that. And so there's all these really cool techniques and things out there that where the coaching comes in to help someone because they haven't been able to solve it for themselves is my point. And that's where management, you have the neuro leadership that's teaching you how to coach. I had a lot of leaders in me in the program that I had because they want to start trying to help. But here's the challenges. They're not teaching you a lot on the mindset piece of it. And so this is why I always said the life coaching in organizations, you need a balance of those people that are actually going to help with a lot of where it doesn't matter like what techniques you're kind of showing someone. They have some things that are stuck in there that they need to work out. And so that's going to require someone that really wants to help with some of that mind work, so to speak.
Exactly.
And so having that combination in your organization, think about the holistic approach of I'm me and I'm sound body and mind, both life and career, how much better I'm going to be for you and your company. Like I even believe, I'm going to go off on a tangent when we talk about personal transformation and say you had a checklist of things. I would be teaching financial intelligence in my company. And the reason why is because if they're not worrying about money issues, that's one chunk of information. They're not competing and helping me and my company be successful. Remember I said there's 5 to 7 chunks of information at one given moment that employee is able to retain. So the more that you work on helping them be whole as a person, there's more chunks for you in that day.
Yeah. And that's when you build a lot of trust. And that's when you build a lot of loyalty, but the right kind of loyalty, not loyalty because I know if I go somewhere else, I'm not going to get the paycheck that you're giving me. I know if I go somewhere else, I won't have the benefits that you're giving me. No, I know that I want to stay with you because we work well together and because we're aligned in what we want to do. That's why a lot of organizational transformation, the way I see it, it's just not possible without personal transformation. Personal transformation is possible without organizational transformation.
Yeah. And
So that's where it has an
yeah.
advantage
And
over
just
that.
kind of circle back on what you said, because I think this is an important point to highlight, is having someone stay at your company because you have good benefits, you have a pension plan, or et cetera reasons. Do you really want that to be the reason why they're with you? Are they going to give you all of themselves to help you become successful as a company? Is that what you want? I'm going to tell you, I've been in several companies as an agile coach, and a lot of them that I've had conversations, that's why they stay there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say this, but that's sad.
Mm-hmm.
It's sad for the individual because you know they're not 100% fulfilled. And it's sad as a company if that's the reason why they stay with you.
Yeah. It says a lot about the culture and about again how we do things in that company and what we value people for and what they feel valued for. It all boils down to that. And this is why a lot of them do leave. A lot of them who go through personal transformation will end up leaving that company, no matter how big and important and how many benefits that company gives them, because they go through that process of personal transformation, and those basic benefits and just the money is not going to cut it anymore. They know it's more to that. And you see a lot of that, and a lot of people in our generation, the 40s to 50s,
They're starting to question now.
they quit and they go to smaller companies, or
They start their own business.
they start their own business. And it's not, I wouldn't necessarily call it the crisis, the middle life crisis. It's all due to this personal transformation that they went through, and
Yeah,
they suddenly realized something.
and those of you that might be watching this, 2 points to what Roxana is saying, because I think this is important, is a company shouldn't be afraid to lose their employees. Mm-hmm. Because if you're setting up your company the right way, they won't leave, right? There's that great quote from Richard Branson. The second thing is, those of you that are working in companies and have a fear of a job, I know a lot of people are looking for work right now, but I'm going to share my coach, my business coach in the program that I'm in. Her and her husband cleared $800,000 last year during COVID to help people start their own coaching business. So I'm saying this because there's even others that cleared millions last year. There's a market out there that people are waking up to want to start doing. So either these people that are joining these programs are doing a side hustle, or they actually left their job. But what I'm trying to say, it's possible now. Mm-hmm. It's possible with the ability that people are waking up to. You have these people that are, the online business, that they can actually be their own business person. So what I'm trying to say is it's all possible.
Yeah, it is possible. And this is why when you look at organizations that are thriving, they are thriving because they place a lot of focus on their people, and because their people believe in that organization, in the mission, the vision, the goals, the values, and everything. That's why people stay. That's right? Yeah, exactly.
Like I had a conversation with someone at one of the companies that during the time where some of the people weren't set up either financially or physically when it started going remote. So they actually created a stipend to help people pay for it. Because remember, that increased their bills. And some people, they weren't financially equipped for that extra. Maybe you have kids of 5, one's going to college. Who knows, right? So that created a lot of stress. So they heard that feedback. And so they created a stipend. Some people, instead of having them make a PTO, they actually gave them some time off to get themselves situated so they can figure out how to work remotely. But all of these things that I hear companies doing that are responding to the things that they're learning about their employees. So I've been in agile engagements where people are burnt out and they're overworking, or they're really stressed and they're like, well, we have to get it done. And it doesn't matter what feedback you give, those people know they're not being heard.
Yeah.
Because nothing's changing.
Mm-hmm. And that's where I think you froze.
Did I?
Okay. Yeah, for a little bit. Now I can hear you.
Oh, that's
and you
weird.
moved, but anyway, so to your point, I think absolutely. And this is where we've seen a lot of things going, down because of that. But I feel like talking about why people don't do what you're going to tell them is because the emotional toll is so high.
Mm-hmm.
And when our emotions go high, our rational side goes very low. You cannot expect me to be able to have a reasonable, rational conversation if my emotions are over the top. And that's why the focus on people, when I say focus on people, it's not going to be about the norm, the standards, the typical measurements, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
You can have a business discussion. Here's where the beauty lies in what we're doing right now, because you can actually have a very fruitful business discussion where you say, well, shit, things are not where they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
I know we're overloaded. I know we're tired. I know we're depleted. What do you want to do? What do we want to do about it? Because we can't keep going on like that.
And it's so important, Roxana, because here's the thing. Those of you that don't know, I'm going to say is imagination and all the ideas come when we're in a relaxed state. Exactly. Not in that threat state that you just described, Roxana. So where do you think all the great ideas are going in that situation? Nowhere.
They're not going anywhere, and they just add up to the frustration. Exactly.
And that's where a lot that you'll see people, with the mindset, relaxation, meditation, and all these things, they've been really like big lately. Well, whatever gets you to relax is where your best imagination and thoughts will happen. And that's going to allow you to actually get, out of that automatic mechanism, right? You want to be in that creative mechanism, as I call it. Mm-hmm. So companies, they have a vested interest about personal transformation and holistic transformation for that reason. Because if you really want to be a company that is innovative, a company that is an incubator of the future, one that really can get through these challenges, because I'm telling you, these small companies are coming at the heels of these big ones because
absolutely
faster. Yeah. And I kind of giggle inside and a little bit facetious sometimes because I'm just like, they need to see it in order to change, right? They need to get smacked around a little bit to wake up. Mm-hmm. And again, relaxed. There's a reason why, when they showed a lot like at Google, Google every company has its issues. Okay. I'm just giving this one example where, those lounge chairs where people can relax reading. Like I was at Capital One and one of their creative in Chicago, one of their floors, they had all these like areas where people can relax because it was a highly creative area. And they know good things come from when you are in a relaxed state.
where they can relax and play. I remember I was in London years back, in the UK, and I visited Google because they organize a conference for learning and development. And I went to Google in London, and they had the lounge area and everything. And there was this guy that was giving us the tour that was saying, oh yeah, and we do have coaching that we can schedule ourselves for. So all of the employees, they can just book a coaching session. And they also have the area where they can play. I think that is essential if you want people to come up with innovative and creative ideas. You need play, you need fun, you need relaxations. And this is where, whenever I talk to especially small business CEOs, because they're so great at thinking of new ways and ideas of how they can build their team to be a good one and a great one. And it's like, you need to be able to cry together and have fun together. You do these two things, you have yourself a real team, because that's going to build trust long term. That's going to help them stay with you. And just two things.
When I talk about learning how to think and act like an entrepreneur, but that's also an entrepreneur that figured out self-care.
Absolutely.
Because you need both. Yeah. And a lot of, I had a conversation with someone about, well, that some of these entrepreneurs, they drive themselves to the ground and they work all the time, and then they expect everyone else to do that. That's not what I mean. Because they're going to create a culture and environment that people are not going to want to stay, and they get burnt out and they leave. And you see it all the time, in companies that were startups. Now, I think the biggest thing is when you are these smaller companies and you're starting to grow and get bigger, I would assume your biggest fear is to become the big companies that you didn't want to be. And you have to start thinking about personal transformation and incorporating that into your company, but in a very non-traditional way of thinking. I can't stress this as we wrap our session up today. You can't do it the way of how it worked before. You have to look at it as futuristic, different, turn it upside down, inside out, break it apart of what that looks like. Because if you use the traditional professional and development way, if you use a traditional of anything, that's the problem.
Yeah. So wrapping up for today, which is the winner, Veronica? Organizational transformation or personal transformation? What do you think?
I would say, when it comes to people, me, I'm all about helping people thrive and create and design their own. So I'm always going to be personal transformation, because then you will make a company successful.
Yeah, that's where you start. To me, it's like the parallel with emotional intelligence. Again, we go back to that. You cannot have better relationship management without having better self-management. And self-management starts from self-awareness. So if you're going to start any kind of organizational transformation, you have to start personal transformation first.
So the winner is, I'm hearing, is personal transformation. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to throw organizational transformation out the door, but maybe you need to rethink what it looks like going forward.
It's a lot of time, energy, and money that you're saving if you start with personal transformation for your organizational transformation. That's for sure. Because otherwise...
And they've kind of moved from the word transformation a lot in companies to agility.
Yeah.
But I almost like the word shifting, because that means it's always moving and adapting, which is the same as agility. But a lot of people, the reason why I don't like that word is because they equate it with agile and being a process, and then they detach the people aspect of it. So I almost want to find a different word, because that word has created its own meaning, and not necessarily, I would say, where we want to move more now. And you spend more time trying to get people to understand it that there needs to be something where the light bulbs are going on, where it's more about the people part, because the shifting and moving in the systems of a culture or something to where an ecosystem or whatever that we want to start calling it, but it needs to be almost fluid.
Yeah.
Because
I like the ecosystem that you just said.
We're made of 80 to 90% of water.
Mm-hmm.
We're so fluid.
Yeah.
We're so fluid that, seriously. So they're creating something rigid, which I see all the time, and creating these systems. People love to talk about systems. Well, you have to be mindful if it is a fluid system in order for you to be able to adapt easily. Now, when you have to deal with a lot of people, you have to create some kind of structure. But think about like when you're building something and you're trying to adapt to earthquakes, right? For example, what kind of framework are you building that's going to move so you don't come tumbling down in that earthquake? That's my point.
Yeah. And I think we talked about flexibility last time. So go to our YouTube channel, because that was one of the top 5 skills that people are looking for. So go to our YouTube channel and watch that show, because that was.
And you might not have to overthink it if people naturally have this innate in them.
Exactly.
You don't have to create all these complicated things.
But hey, you got to be aware that they have this innate in them, right? You better know. All right. So what is up with you, Veronica? What have you got for us?
Two things are going on. I created this free gift for those of you that are really trying to figure out how to understand the self-talk that limits you from moving forward. And so I created my Thrive Limiting Belief Tracker. It's a 5-page guide that helps you get to a point where that you start to understand your patterns, because that's the first step in change work, right? In your personal transformation is understanding your current state. And this is going to help you understand the patterns that you are right now. So then you can figure out what you need help with or what you might think about what you can do on your own. So use it. It's great. It's a 5-page guide that I put together to help you start that first step. And the second thing that I started was my group. So I am gearing up for my online coaching program, my Thrive for Excellence program, which is coming soon. But I launched the Facebook group called Thrive for Excellence. It's a community where we will be helping those that really want to become what I call thrivers, and designing your own unique way you lead and the way of your personal market value, right? So it's all the things that we were talking about today and what we've been talking about a lot on the show. And so that's where I'm going to start hosting masterclasses, challenges, and very unique things in there only. And then also the people that join can start helping each other as well. So take a look at it in the Facebook group and join. And I'm hoping to see you there. But also take advantage of that gift. We're going to put that in the link in the YouTube description and so forth. But I will, if you can't find it, message me on LinkedIn.
Exactly. I mean, Veronica is there. Just look her up. Veronica Stewart. You will find her on LinkedIn, also on Facebook. So, but we will definitely put all of the links in there. And I think this is one of the blocks, right? I mean, okay, I want to start my personal transformation. Where do I start? What do I do? Do I really need one? And I think what you're doing, it is overwhelming. And what you're doing, if you're giving it a good structure for the first steps that you can take, and what it does is just takes you through where are you right now? It's how often do we think about that? I don't think enough.
I've asked a lot of people of what's holding them back, and sometimes they can't even put a label to it. They
They
don't know.
can't.
And so this guide allows you to understand the 5 negative emotions. It allows you to start figuring out what types of distortions and self-talk that you're giving yourself. There's actually a guide. And then I also have where you have to reflect and journal. So all of these things that I put in this guide is really to help you start tracking and understand your patterns. So when you do decide to get coaching or join my program, you have a better idea of what your needs are. Because a lot of people, when I will ask them, they don't even know. Like just to answer that question stresses them out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and yes, I did join your Facebook group. Yes.
Yay!
I can't wait. I can't wait. Awesome. Okay. So for me, it's the Lead for Legacy League. I told you that we had, I mean, the discussions that we're having and all of the sessions is just growing from one session to the next. So, and now yesterday we also had somebody, so we have a combination of Romania, Mexico, Canada, and now UK in the house, which is
Awesome.
very interesting to see all of these people from super various industries having very similar challenges. And yesterday the discussion was about development goals and motivating people, and also how we can measure, by the way, talking about measuring the workload, because this is what, listen, so this is what some of the managers, the good manager people, are thinking about. They want to measure the workload because they know people are overloaded, but they want to have some tools that measure the workload because they want to make the business case to the business, to HR, to the business, to get more resources, because otherwise the team is going to crash.
Yeah, they have to be able to prove to spend that money.
They have to, and it all is related. Yes, we are. So now the problem is we're getting the results, don't get me wrong, but at what cost and for how long? Because if people are going to crash, we're not going to be able to get those results anymore.
And I love where you're going with this as we wrap up is both our programs. What it does, it takes you out of your box of being in your company and be able to have perspective of all the different companies and what they're talking about. And you start to realize similarities.
Yes.
But you also have your own unique ability and space to develop and grow. And so that's why I'm developing this program. Is the reason is to take you out of the company so you have a better perspective.
Yeah.
And you start realizing those things, which yours is doing the exact same thing. That, again, this is how I keep stressing is. And this is why you and I have joined together and why we have so much in common in this is because it is time to rethink that usual pattern of doing it internally and keeping it inside is where you have to let it go. You got to try something different. And this year, people like myself and people like Roxana are getting you guys to try something different.
Exactly.
Because different is what we need now. Get out of your company and get more of a perspective. Get a worldly. And then you start seeing the similarities, which I think is awesome what you're mentioning. And that is so much more powerful than staying in your bubble at your company in your leadership workshops that you're designing.
And just turning from one corner to another and then no results. So talk to me, DM me about it, and I'm happy to chat to you and give you more details. It's a membership program and you can join at any time and stay for 1 month, see if it fits you. It doesn't fit you, you go, you move on. But I really think you will like it.
And if you join my group and you can download that I'm going to be launching this program really soon. Just getting a couple things final, but it is going to be like Roxana's version, but it's really of people working on their thriving and personal market value for themselves. And so it's almost like we can help each other in a way. And this is and this is just us transparent talking is she helps with the management. How do I manage and lead other people? Where if they have people that are needing to go through this is a type of program that you can send them to. But we focus on similar things, but very different specifics.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe we will join forces at some point. Would
Yeah,
you like
well,
that, people?
yeah. I mean, we have like my program and some of the things we do have a crossover, but
Yeah,
I am agnostic
that's
of management or not. It's more about the person and them being confident about how they are in their life and career and so forth. But that could be where she works on that with the management and group of people. But some of the things that we're building, and we're like, you know what, you might have things that I need, and I
yeah.
might have things that you need. And so that's why we're thinking about joining some of those pieces. So keep following us, because you never know with us. You got two game changer strategists in the room. You
We're
never know
thinking
what
on
we're
our
going to come up
feet.
with.
So yeah, exactly. All right. So next week is gonna be why workshops create frustration and not transformation. So
Oh yeah. And you know
it's a
what?
good follow up after today.
And I'm even going to even throw in like cohorts too, and
Mm-hmm.
all of these other different blends that are out there, because this is where, again, we have to start cracking it open and turning things upside down on our approaches.
Yeah, exactly. So stay tuned because we have a lot to say about that. In the meantime, send us your questions or your topics that you want us to discuss here, and DM us for both of our programs. We're both happy to chat to you. So
And let us know
leave
how
in
you
the
like the
comments.
show today, because we're going to
Yeah,
continue pushing the edge. And as I
yeah,
love to say, poke the bear,
always.
because the bear needs to wake up from hibernation. So
Yeah.
I'll see you guys next week.
Okay. Bye.